The purpose of this video is to go over the directions for the guided research project essay, and also to give you a sense of the goals and the reasons for it being set up the way it is. So the goal really is to give you guys a sort of way into doing this kind of research paper that you will be expected to be able to do going forward, for composition 2, for instance. So it's intended to get you to practice those skills, but without having to do the full-fledged process. And the only way that we can do that is if I choose a topic and we work from that. So because we're all going to be working on the same topic, I am able to provide some sources for you to give you some way into this topic, as opposed to starting from scratch. And I'll also be able to sort of understand where you're coming from in different assignments. Even if it's not quite right, I'll have a sense of where you're, what you're attempting to do. So the topic that I've chosen is one that hopefully people will be somewhat interested in. There's a lot of talk of this, and I think people have certainly some personal connection to the idea of cell phone use in teenagers, and then what may or may not be the effects of that. So the topic we'll be writing about is, I put in the title here, cell phones, teens, and mental health. Down here, cellular phone use, mental health issues in teens. You can substitute in words as you're doing searches for these, like mobile phone use, instead of teenagers, adolescents, etc. But that's the general topic. I'm not giving you a specific question, as we did in the previous essay, where I gave you a question and essentially the answer to that question would be your thesis. This time, you will need to read about the topic, come up with some ideas, and then create your own thesis based on that. So you'll be creating your own thesis based on this topic. And you can, review what was said in the textbook and our discussion about what a quality thesis for an academic paper would look like. So that's your topic. You will need to create a thesis. I give you the length and setup requirements here, 900 words to 1400. That's not including the works cited page. So the works cited page will be additional words. The basic font, 12 point Times New Roman, double spaced. Here is an important point. So you need to use at least 4 sources for this essay. And at least one of those sources needs to be an academic peer-reviewed source. I've provided a folder in Blackboard that gives you a number of peer-reviewed sources, academic peer-reviewed sources related to this topic. So you have some options to go in there and read through and use one or more of those. But you need at least one academic peer-reviewed source. The other sources can be of various kinds. Please review the source reliability in depth video and handout for ideas of sort of the best types of sources. But they can be, as long as they're fairly good quality sources, they can be used. You can use the article that you all read through perusal, which is the Have Smartphones Destroyed a Generation. That's also a source. It's not an academic source, but it is a source. So you can use those sources that I've provided, but most likely you're going to need to find some additional sources, unless you want to use all the academic ones that I provided, and I don't know if they would necessarily work for every possible focus. So if you have a more specific focus and you want to find some sources that may be of good quality, but maybe not academic peer-reviewed, because those are more difficult to read, you will be looking at finding sources. So that's one of the goals for this, is that you'll be able to to find some sources, go through that process without being overwhelmed with it, because you will have a number of options that I've provided that will give you a way into this, and you can focus on trying to read and understand those as well. So four sources, and the goal is here to find some sources, synthesize the information, and create a thesis-driven argument for this essay. I am asking that you try to stick to the third-person point of view for this, which is the third person is he, she, they, that type of thing, as opposed to first person, which is I or we, and certainly try to stay away from the second person, which is you. That usually doesn't work too well. So you want to create this more academic tone, this sense of objectivity. So you want to try to use the third person throughout, which also means that for this essay, personal experience, observations, things like that are not going to be used for evidence. You need to stick to source-based evidence as you argue in this essay. So that's different from the last one where you could use personal experience. In this one, everything basically has to be source-based. And it would be nice to have an appropriate title, so that's good to have there. So just to sort of recap, the goal here is to kind of do as it's called, a guided research project, where some of the elements are provided for you, where others you have to play around with and hopefully use a library website. You'll need to work on creating citations. You'll need a works cited page. You will have done that for your annotated bibliography as well, but it's about being able to cite sources with in-text citations and full citations at the end. That's a skill you need to have when going into composition 2 as well. So this is about finding sources, evaluating them, synthesizing them, and citing them and integrating them into your work while creating a cohesive argument that argues for something. So that's the basic idea for this, and you can see some of the sort of goals down here, which are actually fairly similar to the goals for the previous essay, although this one has sort of an added level, added skills that you're expected to be able to do for this essay.